This is the SOG Kiku assisted open, so if you see this video and think, man, I really want one of those, make sure you don't accidentally buy the standard opener, or I think they even have a fixed blade. So, let's talk about the assist on it. Really solid, positive lockup, no wiggle at all once it's open. There's also no dead zone. You can see here, even if I pull it basically back to the point where it's going to shut and then let go of it, it still springs. Even at the peak here, still has spring. I really like this because my previous knife, which was a Gerber, had a lot of dead zone. Additionally, honestly, since the assist is so strong, you almost have to make sure you have a good enough grip on it, because if you don't, it kind of jolts when it opens. Like, if you were really loosely holding onto it, it could rip right out of your hand. The other thing I thought when I got this was that the release was going to be way too tight or way too difficult to access, because when you look at it, it doesn't look very prominent, and it's just tiny. It almost mismatches too, because it's silver, unlike the rest of this, which is black. But I was wrong. It's a really, really light press. You just barely have to press it and it goes. So you can see there. And I think it's also got a bit of a bevel on it, which makes it even easier to close. So it sort of helps you once you start pushing the blade. One of the few negatives that I could find coming from having such a strong spring and lockup on this is that it could potentially be a bit difficult to close one-handed. I can swing it decently after using it for a bit, but I don't know. I would say that the Gerber was actually a bit easier to close one-handed because of the dead zone that it had from like here to open. While we've got it open, let's talk about the blade a little bit. So it's a 3.5-inch black coated stainless steel. Technically it's considered a Tanto blade, but it's almost a hybrid between a straight or like a clip point, maybe even a spear, and a Tanto, because it has this curved section here and then another curved section here that meet where a Tanto blade would normally be. It's got a pretty inaggressive angle here, because normally on a Tanto blade it's going to be a straight cut, almost 45-degree angle right there. I actually find that I really like this. I've always liked Tanto style blades, but after getting this I'm realizing that I really like how inaggressive this is, but it still gives some amount of prominence if you need to cut precisely but can't use the tip. It gives just the right edge for you to get on without getting too much of this or that. Out of the box, the Kiku is pretty sharp. I haven't had to touch it up at all or anything, and I've had it for a few months now. That being said, I haven't really torture tested it. This is more of a convenience carry than anything, and I just use it to open up boxes of gun parts and Amazon packages. That being said, it still does have a really nice coating on it that I think would hold up well for everyday use or, you know, work. And it's also got serrations, pretty light serrations on the top here to help give you a really positive grip if you're, you know, stabbing the shit out of something or need downward pressure. The last aspect concerning the blade is the lock back here. The lock is in an okay spot. It's not very invasive or gets in the way, but let's be real, I never use it, and most people probably won't either. I feel like it's more of a safety thing that they have to put in. The one thing that I wish they did not do with this lock, you probably can't see it anymore because a lot of it's rubbed off, but they colored the lock red for when it's in the unlocked position, almost like a gun safety. And you can still see some of the red in there. I tried rubbing some of it off, but honestly I couldn't get rid of it, and instead it just spread to the micarta on the handle, which is just annoying. Like, if you're gonna put red in there to warn that it's not locked, then at least do something legitimate instead of just putting a Sharpie in there and scribbling it around. I would say that's my biggest gripe with this knife, which I guess isn't that big of a gripe and probably says something good about the knife, but I don't know. That just seemed really cheap and shortcutty instead of finding a legitimate way to color that lock. Now, I had mentioned that I thought the coating on the blade was really nice and would probably hold up well on everyday use. That is not the same with the pocket clip. So you can probably see here there's a decent bit of chips and scratching on the clip right here, especially where it sticks out prominently, and up top here yet again where it sticks out pretty prominently. That is probably another one of my bigger complaints with this, is I would have rather than just left that as like a raw blued steel or gave it an actual legitimate powder coat, almost like the blade, instead of this sort of chintzy paint job on here. That being said, it's not a big deal. It's more of an aesthetic thing. The clip itself is still very sturdy and is one of the main reasons I bought a SOG knife. My buddy has a flash and he just bragged about how low this rides in your pocket, how it's basically invisible. And he's so right. It's great how low this rides, because compared to the Gerber that I had before, this thing is almost invisible. You don't even know that I'm carrying it unless you're looking specifically for this clip. And realistically, anything that's going to be sticking out of your pocket to any extent is going to get scratched up from you leaning against countertops or just bumping into things in daily use. And apparently the clip is also reversible. You can swap it to the other side. I have not done that myself, but I do see a small hole here where it looks like a Torx, which is currently inside of there. Could be swapped over to the other side. The last feature on the Kiku that I'm going to talk about is probably the most prominent, and that is the handle. Definitely unique. When I first got it and when I first saw it, I thought it was Kevlar because it's very, very solid, very tough. It doesn't scratch, it doesn't fray, nothing. But it turns out it's micarta. Now, I don't know the differences between micarta and Kevlar. I'm not some knife guru. That being said, I'm really impressed with it. It's pretty comfortable. I thought that the cuts were a little bit goofy looking at first, but it fits really nice in the hand, gives a really great grip, and honestly, I like it a lot. I would say the only, I don't even know if I'd consider it a negative, but the only thing that some people might not like is the way that it wears. It wears pretty quickly when it's inside your pocket just from rubbing off the more prominent sort of green color. And you can even see right here on the edge where it doesn't get rubbed down as much. It's still a very, very bright green, and you can see in a picture from like the retailer's website that the contrast is pretty stark. It's a lot darker even after just a few months of light use and carrying it in my pocket. But even still, I don't think that that's a negative necessarily, and I personally really like the way that it wears. Overall, I would say that I really like the Kiku. I have never owned a SOG product before prior to this, and I was in the market for a new knife. This went on sale for decently cheap, I think around $100 or a little under on Midway, and I picked it up sort of as an impulse buy because I was buying something else, and I really like it. I would say it's probably a little bigger than I need, but I mean, who doesn't love whipping out a big assisted open pocket knife and scaring the shit out of the people around you, or just making them wonder, what is this guy thinking? That's probably not the best reason to want a big knife. I mean, it's totally practical. That's of course why I want a big knife. It does everything I need. Hopefully it does everything you need too. I recommend it. This motherfucking lint. Why would I use a black background? I don't understand. I'm just stupid. I don't know how to make videos.